Good afternoon and welcome to ICE Webinars, a cool place for hot topics. Today we are joined by Nicole Dhanraj, Independent Business Advisor and Support Specialist. Just a reminder that ICE Magazine is headed to ICE 2023 at the Renaissance Nashville Hotel in Tennessee from 17th to the 19th of February next year. The Imaging Conference and Expo is the only conference dedicated to imaging directors, radiology administrators, and imaging engineers. ICE offers valuable CE credits from the ASRT and ACI and is a unique community of key decision makers and influential imaging professionals. More details can be found online at attendice.com. Today's webinar is eligible for one ARRT Category A CE credit by the AHRA. You can obtain your CE certificate by completing the post-webinar survey. The survey will be emailed 1 hour after the completion of today's webinar. You must complete the survey to receive your 1 CE credit, and you'll be able to download the certificate directly from your computer once the survey is submitted. If you have any questions, you can reach us at webinar@mdpublishing.com. We'll wrap up today's presentation with a live Q&A, so please submit your questions anytime using the questions feature on the webinar dashboard. Let's kick off today's webinar by giving away one of our brand new ICE gym bags to the attendee that can tell me the answer to the following trivia question. Nicole, our presenter, lives in Arizona. Who can tell me which national park in Arizona has a north and south rim with a big hole in between? Answer now using the questions feature on your dashboard, and I'll reveal the answer at the end of the webinar. As I mentioned earlier, Nicole is our presenter today. She will discuss navigating challenges faced by women in biomed and imaging. Nicole, you may begin whenever you're ready.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Linda. Welcome, everybody, and I am so thrilled to have this discussion with you, sponsored by ICE. I really just wanted to have this conversation to help promote cohesion, inclusivity, and really a workplace that values vulnerability and capability amongst us women with no boundaries, especially as it relates to gender. So there is an intimate group of us here today. I'd really like to see if we can get some discussion going. I find a lot of times women particularly, we have all of these issues going and we're either talking about it in siloed or just not bringing up these topics. And as such, we keep undergoing the same issues over and over. So my intent today is really to share some of the challenges that our colleagues amongst us are going through and really how we can strengthen the support. I think until we band together and until we raise awareness of this, I think only then we'll see some changes happening significantly. One of the things I've learned over my career is that, in my lifetime of being within radiology, I may not be fortunate to experience or see that change. But really, all of us need to work together, whether or not we see the change for ourselves, but at least to make it better for our future generations. So with that said, let's get into this. As we get started, there are some rules of engagement. With such a small group too, I'd like for us to have some honest conversation. I would have opportunity for you to enter some information. You don't need to put your name. So let's be as open and honest without really recognizing what you're experiencing or what you're feeling. We're not going to turn the dial at all. I think we still need to get out in front our senior leaders and healthcare at large to really voice these, but coming together as a group makes it stronger than maybe the 1 or 2 folks, because then you're emphasizing those stereotypes a little bit more. Also, at the end of this session, I'd like for you to take some sort of action, whether it is if you want to start a movement or you start sponsoring some women within your own organization, or you just have the courage to speak up some more about what is affecting you as far as your career growth and the possibilities around you. I think too many times we're talking about it, but we're not really coming together and really taking formal action. And lastly, if you can just get this ready, classpoint.app, you don't need to download anything. It would just be opening your browser. If you're on your phone, you can do so. On the desktop as well, you can just go to classpoint.app. So when it's time to get into those questions, you have it available. So let's get started. I'd like to share with you some of our stories, some of the stories faced by women within radiology. Think about this. Right now, amongst us, in our association, or even in this webinar, we have a woman there whose work takes precedence over her children. Even though one of those kids are probably faltering in school, ditching school because thinking nobody cares, but the work demands priority and attention because she's too afraid to speak up, needing help, or even wanting to take time off and say no for various reasons. This is one of our colleagues. There's another colleague, competent, brilliant, has been in the industry for years, yet she's considering leaving the industry. However, ashamed to think what her peers would think about her, that she's unable to handle the load and really just becoming another statistic. Then there's the star Biomed female account manager that she's treated like eye candy because she's in a male-dominated world, but ignored for her knowledge and worth, but seemed to have some worth only when in the company of a man. Then there are those women whose male colleagues around her talk at her versus with her, dismiss her ideas, barely communicates, overlooks her, and make her feel incompetent and weak. These are just not stories. These are what my colleagues have shared with me, and some of these what I have experienced. There's also the colleague who's trying to juggle it all because we've been told it is possible that women can have it all. But is that really true? Is that a farce? Do we now feel like we can have it all, but inside we know that we're failing miserably because our priorities, our values are pulled in many directions? Unfortunately, this particular one has been my story. I am the woman who's made to feel less of herself because my mentors around me, especially the female ones early in my career, made me feel like I didn't exist. They were condescending to my questions and made me really think about my future in leadership. Some of us, we succumb to this. Some of us, we continue to thrive and have that mantra that, yes, I will get through this. Some of us are just not so strong and willing to continue and ready to give up, ready to leave leadership for a less demanding job. I recently had this conversation actually with about 3 or 4 colleagues within the last month. The demands of the current organization, the hours that we're putting in, the quality of life that we're experiencing. It's all really a toll on us, increasing our burnout. Yet, we're unable to speak up and really let our supervisors, our team, the people around us know what we are experiencing. We have demanding jobs, that our decisions are going to impact the welfare of our employees. But you know what? We're taking care of them. The bigger question is, who's taking care of us? All of us here are experiencing many different stories. These are just a snippet of it. And friends, these are not stories from years ago. These are not historical stories. These are stories currently happening every day amongst our colleagues. And why? We talk about diversity, inclusion, well-being, balance of life, quality of life. Yet the very leaders who are leading these teams, unfortunately, aren't having that. So I know why you are here today, or actually I know why I pulled you here today. I wanted to have that conversation and educate us, continuing to drive this movement of making radiology and biomed more inclusive environment. But why are you here today? If you can now go to your ClassPoint.app, put in that code 54045, and I want you to honestly tell me what attracted you. I know you're getting some credit. Maybe some of you I encourage based on my post, but why are you here today? What attracted you specifically to this topic? I'll give you a moment. ClassPoint.app. Once you go in there, you should see the question. Just enter the code. To see if others are feeling like you. You know what? There's not just one or two. There's a lot of others feeling just like you. The concern that we have right now is that we're not sure who's experiencing this because, like I said, we're not really talking about it. Maybe we'll meet somebody at a conference, maybe we'll drop a little nugget and somebody starts sharing. But even amongst our close peers, we're afraid to share because I don't want to seem less of a person. I don't want to seem that I didn't deserve this or I can't handle it. And the things that we want to do about it, we're hesitant and fearful. Fearful because we can lose our job, fearful because radiology and biomed is a small world. Where are we going to get another job? Who's going to want to hire me? Maybe we're fearful because of our age. I've been with the organization for a while, to move on to another, start over. Who's going to want to hire me? All of these things are going through our minds. So let me learn a little bit about you. Just some tidbits for those of you who don't know me. I have been in radiology for about 23 years. Got in via the military. I had no clue what I was getting into, but based on my scores, the recruiter thought, yes, I'll be good asset for healthcare, and here I am. Many years later, going through the ranks of starting the clinical and jumping into radiology. So I'll have Linda now launch a poll for us, so just to get an idea of who's in the audience. I can't see you, so just to be able to speak a little bit more to maybe your experience, your agenda. Linda, if you can then just let me know the answer so I can see it.
Yes, I will. We'll just give them a couple of more seconds and then I will close the poll. Okay, I'm closing it now. I can actually share it. Can you see the results, Nicole?
Not yet, no.
Okay.
Let me see, maybe I can stop my screen.
Otherwise, I can read them out to you. It's no problem.
Yes, please.
Yes, there's 67% said yes and 33% said no.
67 yes and 33. Okay, no. Thank you so much. So as we go along, again, just use the chat if you have any comments or questions. But today's session is really about starting that conversation again. I will keep doing this again and again until I'm, able to see a movement started with us banded together here. So what's the significance of this topic? There is a lot, right? Like I said, it's unfortunate that we are experiencing this and not really having anybody that we could band together because either we're too busy, some women are just not ready to speak up and have that courage. So now we're just going to start discussing amongst ourselves until maybe somebody else is going to come and change this, or maybe until healthcare at large changes, but it's going to have to start with us. The key thing is, like I said, we are experiencing these stories. But this is the 21st century. We know that diversity is a strategic tool. We know the benefits of having the C-suite or imaging, biomed, the leaders, the workers looking like our consumers so we can better understand them and serve them. We know diversity and multiple gender perspectives allows us to be more innovative and competitive, to transform organizations, but yet we are here having this conversation, recognizing that many of us are facing challenges. Many of us are ready to leave the organization, leave healthcare as a whole, because we're done. It's taken a toll on our lives, on our families, and yet we don't have the support underneath us. We know that when we have this diverse audience within our staff, there's improved decision making. We know that the impact of groupthink, when everybody is the same, from the same background, the same gender, the same school, the same clubs, associations, we tend to have groupthink. This is why some of us complain about feeling like we're the outsider on the good old boys club because of that groupthink. And ultimately, organizations exist to be financially sustainable and viable. So why is it we know all of these things, yet we are faltering? Why are there not enough women in leadership positions, whether it's radiology or C-suite, in both industries? Why is it that men continue to be in the majority in major decision making, not only for our staff, but for our patients? Now, side note, this is not a male bashing session. I am thrilled of my male colleagues who are out there supporting, but the key is there is not enough of us. There needs to be a bigger partnership, an equal playing field. And the bigger question here is, why are organizations not capitalizing on the benefits of a diverse workforce? Look around your area. Look around the organizations around you. Are they reflective, the leaders that are within your organization, small, medium, large, government, nonprofit, for-profit, whatever it is? Are your teams reflective of your consumers? Are your senior leaders, the C-suite, reflective of your teams? Do I see somebody like myself? Do you see somebody like yourself that you can be inspired and motivated by? And increasing the will to continue and increasing the possibility of your career dreams coming up. Too many times we remain stagnant because we're not increasing the diversity. And this is not an HR strategy. This is not your CEO strategy alone. This is all of us. We all have a stake in this. So we don't wait for HR. We go to HR and say, we need to do something about this. You start having those conversations. If not, what is at stake is going to be a widening gender gap. And like I said, we may not benefit. I may have another 10, 15, 20 years in the industry. It may take that long to really get this changed. But if we don't start the work now, I'm afraid what the future may look like for the women in the biomed and imaging world. Look at this statistic here. A study shows that the full potential of women participating generally in the economy is going to lead to a 26% increase contribution to the global GDP. Those numbers are staggering. Think about it, what it can do at the organizational level. Now, we know some organizations are doing a really good job. I keep track of all the different organizations on LinkedIn, and I'm so happy to read all of these healthcare magazines when you can see the diverse group of people, the ethnicities, the genders in different organizations. There's a mindfulness, a commitment to get that, to make sure that we have that integration. But a lot of us are still behind. Hillary mentioned that when women are empowered, they are immeasurably improve the lives of everybody around them. And that's what I'm saying. We have benefits of putting women in these positions, yet we're still behind. Let's do another poll here quickly. How many women in your organizations are mid-level to mid to senior level positions? I'm talking about managers, directors, your VP, your VP of ancillary services, those positions. How many? Oh, I'm sorry, I have a double C there. That's supposed to be D, over 75%. How many women in your organizations, and I'm not sure how many, I cannot see how many people are on the app, but you have a range. You have some like organizations, like I said, that are very good at making sure that their women are promoted and engaged and have good succession planning. But the dark side of that, sometimes we're doing that just for a number, as opposed to the true value of it. That's a different conversation. So what's the hype about this? Well, not only am I concerned about the future of radiology, specifically due to that widening gender gap, what we have seen is that the strides that we have taken in the last several years, the pandemic undid that. We went 10 steps backwards. Why? Because now we had children at home, family at home, working remotely. All of those things really affected us, where most times women are doing the bulk of the household chores, depending on the family, or just, you know, taking on, even if it's 10 or 20% more of the home duties, having now to deal with the family at home, or even the team with their family at home. It really increased the stress level and the workload of what we were experiencing before. Gender bias and barriers still remain because there are not enough of us coming through to slay those barriers, and to really help amplify the understanding of how to get rid of these gender biases. These things are ingrained years and years and years, so we need to have that constant vigilance on training and educating. Unfortunately, too, women are always hypervigilant. Whether you're conscious of this or you're doing it subconsciously, everything you're thinking about what is the consequence. If I ask for time off, if I come and I say, hey, you know, my workload is too much, if I ask for help, if I shed a tear out of frustration, we're hypervigilant about our behavior. We're hypervigilant of how we look, how we appear in the boardroom amongst our teams. So we're pretty much sitting there clenched, tightened, as opposed to relaxed and being able to be ourselves. And then also, we hear this hype about being vulnerable, but many around us don't want to be vulnerable. Why? Because I'm afraid, really, is my boss, is the team ready for me to be vulnerable? So let's look at some of these headwinds faced by women. You may have been experiencing some of these or know your colleagues who have been experiencing this. There's a lack of advancement due to gender. Again, thinking that the person may not be able to go through with the role. They don't have the competence. Because they're a mom, there's a motherhood penalty. Oh gosh, she's got a couple kids and young kids too. This may not be the right time for the position. People are making the decisions for you. They really want to offer you maybe that promotion or put you on a project, but in the back of their minds, they have their subconscious, unconscious bias, their implicit bias working for them in a negative aspect, thinking that it's not going to be the right time. Maybe when the kids get older, maybe when she has more experience. She needs to mature a little bit more, still too young. Then there's just plain ignorance, unwavering beliefs because of what is ingrained in us culturally as a result of stereotypes, location, the people, you know, the environment that people grew up around. Those beliefs can take a while to help promote and support women. So until then, there may be some resistance to having a female in certain positions. And then as a result of not wanting to ask for help, there's no support, thus leading to burnout and suffering in silence. And McKinsey and Company show us how exhausted women are compared to their men. A man can come and say specifically, and I've tested this a few times, they can ask for help. They can say no to projects. They can be late. But if a woman were to do that, whether it's myself or colleagues, we end up getting the short end of the stick. It may not be quite blatant to us, but there is some sort of disappointment or some sort of conversation unconsciously that is happening amongst the team, especially in the C-suite. Some more headwinds that we face: pregnancy discrimination. Gosh, you know what? We may not be able to advance her in that position because she's pregnant. These are conversations behind closed doors. Or I know in her interview, we talked about she's wanting to start a family. If we put her here and now she has to be off on FMLA or a sabbatical, what is that going to mean for our team and our organization? Unfortunately, this is just not amongst the other gender. Our own gender thinks like this at times. And then we have the laissez-faire boss who's just sitting back and then just punting everything to you. And unfortunately, without standing up for yourself, just taking on everything just to make sure that you can do a good job. Your bonus may depend on it. Your promotion may depend on it. And then there's a beauty expectation, how you present yourself, or just how you look, you can be discriminated. Unfortunately, this is a double-edged sword for us. Why? Because if I look too prim and proper and really pretty and do my makeup and wear the high heels and the lovely clothes, I may think that others may think that I'm high maintenance, or others may think that I'm not approachable. I've also tested that theory. On one hand, we got to look really prim and proper to make sure that we can get the clients, we can ace the job. But on the other hand, if we don't look prim and proper, we're not fit for the role. And then there's the age factor in it. Subtle, but there's a lot of chatter amongst leaders about the age specifically. Oh, she's getting near to retirement. She's unable to handle the load. Then there's just natural exclusion, the dismissal. Too many times, especially the last few conferences I've been in, I've had people come up and say, Nicole, how can I get my boss to include me? I feel like I'm supposed to be part of this decision making, but I just get told what the decision is versus being including in it. My ego. I don't have an ego, but then they're telling me that it's my ego when I start conversing with them and asking them about why am I not included in those conversations. It's not about ego clashes, it's more about understanding. And then there's just this natural disbelief in our capabilities. And then overall, as a result of that, just having that lack of advancement due to the bias of who they think we are, what we're capable of, especially if we're seeming like we're trying to have it all. So Ms. Sheryl Sandberg says that success and likability are positively correlated for men, but negatively for women. And think about this with the people around you. The more successful a woman is, most times people are standoffish or they maintain a distance. The likability factor goes down, either because people feel that she's not relatable, that they don't want to have any part of her. What did she do to get there? And then this just general sense of competition. Unlike men, they high-five each other. Women, especially when we see well-dressed women in these quote-unquote powerful position, we tend to take a few steps back until you have a conversation recognizing, wow, she isn't bad at all. So these barriers continue. There's just an overall reluctance, even if our partners, anybody, regardless of gender, raise our hand to say, I am in support of females moving forward and making it better. Maybe I need to think about that. I've been in this industry. I don't want to have my retirement hinging on this because I'm speaking up. I don't want my promotion. I don't want people to think I'm a problem child. So there is that reluctance to support. Racism and microaggressions. still rampant, especially depending on your location and your organizational culture. And some men, they do feel like if they were to support, they're going to be seen as wimps amongst their team. And they don't want to have that. They don't want to be on one side, one foot supporting the females, one foot supporting the others. They don't want to feel like they got to leave their strong team in order to facilitate grooming and mentoring the women around them. And then, like I said, there's the organizational culture that just they know, some senior leaders are very much aware of that men wouldn't take the job. But you know what? You pay the woman a high price, make her feel that she's it, that she's highly competent. But really, it's because the men don't want to take that job. They know the impact of it, especially on their personal lives. So that's talking about women generally as a whole. Now, when it comes to women of color, there are some added barriers. Asian women having to break this bamboo ceiling. Other colored women having the concrete ceiling. It's not just the glass ceiling or bamboo that maybe we can still kind of, chip away at. For some of us, there are absolute concrete ceilings. Why? Because we don't have the support, we don't have the push, we don't have that, enough people around us to help break that down. It's just each of us individually pushing against that concrete ceiling. And of course, the research showing that Black women, LGBTQ plus women, and other women with disabilities are more than likely overall to experience those microaggressions. And it could be very subtle. Still a very new topic. I think my personal opinion, not enough is still being done in organizations to bring these things to light. So I remember one of you saying that, you want to know what other people are experiencing. Tell me again, this is open, honest, anonymous. What else are you facing? I've given you some examples there. What else are you facing within being a woman, either in biomed or imaging? I'll give you another couple seconds there. Yes, exactly. One of those stories I told. Talking over you, talking at you, kind of a command and control, passive aggressive behavior, and unfortunately, having to stand there and potentially take it. Looks like my app is freaking out a little bit here, so let's continue. There are lots of other stories there. You know what else our women are facing? This may make your jaw drop. I had one colleague had to twirl like a ballerina in front of her boss because she asked to leave emergently, even though she had an urgent meeting pending. Why? Because Aunt Flo decided to visit her early and her clothes were soiled. And the boss wanted to make sure he had proof before leaving. So she had to twirl around, and guess what? She did it. I was shocked upon hearing this. I said, you actually did it? You didn't just pack up your belongings and you leave? Nicole, my family depends on me. I could not do that. Some of these stories are appalling. How is it that educated, knowledgeable leaders around us, male and female, do these things to our colleagues? Why is it that passive aggressive behavior and bullying still exist? Because some people feel they can get away with it? Or is it, do we have some grace and think that they don't know better? I've seen people get promoted in positions, and really, they hurt my heart knowing that they're leading our people. our team. Now, on the other side, now women are known to be vicious to each other. We want to roar, but I want you to roar in a positive light, not roaring to be vicious against each other. We're here to help. I know some of us have had some, hazing to go through to get where we are. But for the most part, and I'm so happy to see as I've started this conversation in the last couple of years, more and more of us are willing to pause and help each other, as opposed to catfighting, the backstabbing, talking behind each other's back, and so forth. So you have many opinions of women in imaging. I want now to help you navigate those challenges. I want you to consider being mindful about your bias towards others and then allowing some grace. Those are the foundations to move forward. So how do we navigate here? These are some strategies that I would offer. For those of you around, regardless again of gender, go to your colleagues. Kathy, how are you doing? Not the director, Kathy, not the manager, Kathy. How are you doing today, Kathy? That one sentence could actually lead to vulnerability, open conversation, and true insights of how that person is doing, where they need help. It's also an opportunity to recognize and uplift their work. How many of us are going around? Again, we're doing all the recognition for our team, but who is recognizing and taking care of you? Most times you're getting complaints dumped in your lap hour after hour. Everybody the majority of people who's coming into your office is dumping something negative in your lap. If you are a giver, you got to be aware of this because you're going to give, and as much as people around you are going to take. You will need to set those boundaries. Don't become the giving tree that all you're left with is a stump. Instead of waiting for women to step up into leadership positions, all of us here need to now push women into those positions. This is where you identify talent. You don't wait for them to apply, but you go and you identify the talent and you start working on that succession plan. You develop an informal or formal mentorship plan, identifying the key people within your department. Let us set them up for success as opposed to just throwing them into the position because we know they want it. And this is an opportunity, the position got available. But let's start pushing them, but more so in a structured format to give them the tools to be successful. Now, this is a tough one. One of the ways is to call them out on it. If you're sitting there, somebody who's being passive aggressive, there's ways to navigate, right? Those crucial conversations. Joe, the last time we had this conversation, this is how I felt that conversation went. I felt you truly was passive aggressive with me as exhibited by how you used your words and how you approached me. Now we can start with a nice soft conversation with that, but we can get a lot of defensiveness and then that raises, turmoil within us, conflict arises, and there may be some consequences. Now you may have a strained relationship. So this is why many people don't want to call out people about it because they know I got to work with this person for the next 2 years, all right? Or I know it's September or October, my raise is going to be coming up soon. I need to have a good evaluation. So many times we're not willing to have that courage to call them out. Sponsor at least one woman who you can inspire and advocate for in your team. Start building that band together. Like I said, create that succession plan. Start educating and sharing in your staff meetings. Start having training on unconscious bias, cultural intelligence, teamwork, inclusivity, diversity. If you don't have the skills to do so, partner with other organizations. There's a lot of YouTube videos, all these associations, the conferences from ICE, from ACAG, AHRA, all of those always have, some conversation around the topic of DEI. So have your team attend those so they too can become aware. And even though somebody has been in the industry for 20 years, we know grandma has been driving for 60 years and grandma still may not be a good driver, So likewise, even though we've been leaders for 20, 30 years, 5 years, all of us still need educating about these topics. And especially, how do we navigate those conversations, becoming uncomfortable with these conversations within our teams? Be a champion and grow champions. You've decided to come here, you know others are facing this. So what is it that you can do? Start banding together. Look for the people around you or outside of your organization who you can share your insights and know that you want to make this better for yourself or for others. Be somebody who you can just talk out your options, because you know what? Your best plan would maybe your transitioning strategy. This organization isn't for you. So decide what is best for you. There's going to be consequences to it, right? But if you decide to stay and that behavior is in there, you are accepting that. If you decide to leave, then yes, you're accepting that you got to start over, you got to go through the job hunt, but you cannot be waffling with it. Decide what is your transition strategy, or decide what is your decision and stick with it. If you're going to create some ruffles around this and you want to start the movement, go for it. But there are going to be consequences. If you want to leave and do something, go for it. Don't worry about what other people say. Just recognize what is in it for you, what's best for you, and making sure that you have a plan before you transition. If you see something, say something. If you're being silent about it, part of that is compliance. Use your HR, your employee wellness, as a platform to jumpstart these conversations. If you're experiencing that bullying, microaggressions, if you had that experience, like I said with my colleague, you know, she had to show proof of this, that is not something to be silent about, because when we are, that behavior is going to continue. We're not looking necessarily to get people in trouble. We're looking to make sure that they understand the implications of their behavior. Ultimately, don't take this personal. Educate where you can. And with the women around you, don't think it's a competition. Collaborate with them, uplift each other. Start with a compliment. Whatever that is, we have a lot in common, from makeup to shoes to outfit to personality to topics that you like to attending the same conference. You just start with a simple compliment. I couldn't help but notice that you were really good up there, or how you carry yourself. It's amazing. That's really good. And you start those conversations, and then you just make people feel like they're on cloud nine. Marvel at others, those around you. Don't envy them, marvel at them, and let them be a source of inspiration. Get to know their story. When you hear about people's stories, you see them in a whole different light. If you're leading teams, you're leading meetings, have conversation ground rules. So for the example where that person is talking over, then there needs to be establishment. If we're in the boardroom or in some team meetings, we are going to have an inclusive space here. We're going to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to chat. Don't just take over the conversation. Don't just interrupt people. There are going to be specific ground rules that we're going to follow. Understand the motivators for the women around. Not all women are driven by money, right? It could be that they want that balance. What does balance look like? Balance for me is working 18 hours. I love my job, but my motivator is making sure that I leave a legacy in radiology. And I want to have that opportunity to serve my team. What are your motivators? Does your boss understand what your motivators are? Does your CEO understand the motivators of the women in leadership in the organization? The key for all of you is believe in yourself. You don't need to take this nonsense. You take it as compliance. Believe in yourself that you deserve better, right? And that we can do better for our people, our gender in this industry. Be aware of your stereotypes. The ethnicities around you, the gender around you, what are you thinking negatively about them? And like I said, for women, allow some grace and learning. Don't be quick to be defensive or be annoyed and upset. Give them the benefit of the doubt that they need to be educated on this topic, and you be the one to do so. You know, the last time you had this conversation with me, you asked me these questions in the light that made me feel uncomfortable. I'd like to give you a tidbit of how you can rephrase that question. Or if I had this meeting to go to and I told you that I got a female problem, I need to leave, this is how you're supposed to potentially react. This is a suggestion. So allow that grace and learning. And for our male colleagues, ask these questions with curiosity versus like, oh gosh, that you're making people around you feel less of themselves. Understand what drives gender. Don't just read men are from Mars, women from Venus. Ask your team what drives them. Ask them what matters to them. What are some of the things that maybe you shouldn't be saying, or what do you need to say more of? And like I started with, this doesn't need to be driven only from the top or from your HR. You can go back into your department. You can come to any of these associations, give a presentation, get your band together, your tribe together, and establish micro initiatives. Start with one, start with two. What is it that you can do to change this for the better? Is it helping people understand the conversations as it relates to race? Or what does it mean to be passive aggressive, a recipient in that conversation? And then for our men to be better allies. We have seen some good supporters around us, but we need them to take another step on that ladder and really support us and reduce the allyship gap. Declare yourself an ally. I am here to make sure that we have an inclusive environment for our women. Create work groups. Get these women together, get all genders together so we can have open, vulnerable conversation just on the topic of gender. The things that we should be talking more of, the things that you want to hear. What is it that the people around you are doing and it's affecting your work, affecting your quality of life, affecting you as a person? Women need to listen without being defensive. Be mindful, the bias is going to take a long time to peel back the layers of. So give the opportunity for these conversations to happen. Allow for the ignorance, but if it's happening in an open environment in these work groups, we can talk openly about it. What happens in that room stays in the room. It could get heated because of the emotion behind it, but knowing that we're here to be vulnerable, to lay everything out and start creating this new inclusive culture. And this is a tough one that has been a struggle for me within radiology, helping others understand your privilege. Each of us have a specific privilege according to race, gender, education, all of these. Do you know the impact of your privilege? Do you know others who are looking around you and wishing they can have your opportunity, but they know that they may not because they're thinking you have more privilege than them? It's easier for you to become president of an association. It's easier for you to become VP. It's easier for you to interview in that position and have people backing you. Be mindful of that so you can help those around you groom themselves to be exceptional leaders and have the confidence and courage in themselves. Set the tone to, especially in Biomed, you need to set the tone to your customers. This is how we appreciate and talk with our female employees. These are the behaviors you would not allow, making sure that, if somebody is asking for John, I'm pushing Mandy in front. Not because, the customer wants to speak to John because he doesn't want to have to deal with a woman. Making sure that you set the tone for your customers. Maybe going so far as if you don't support an inclusive environment, we may not want to do business with you. All of you, be brave to step in and speak up on behalf of women. We need that courage. When one steps up, you're going to have a bunch of you behind, willing to take that step. It's just that some of us need somebody to throw the grenade out. I'm willing to throw the grenade out, but sometimes also I am waiting for another person to throw the grenade out, clear the way, and now I can take my gigantic step. Evaluate your communication, especially towards women. Passive aggressive, is my tone directive versus collaborative? Am I cutting off the person, not waiting for them to speak their entire thought? Do I get upset and impatient because somebody, with the language, they're just maybe stuttering with it or just not being able to communicate clearly? And then you're just saying, yes, 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 okay, 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 let's move on kind of thing, right? Evaluate how are you communicating, being mindful of it and asking for the feedback. And not only asking for it, being open to that feedback without being defensive. So I've taken you through this journey of the stories that our women are facing, the stories that some of you, I can only imagine what some of you are experiencing. How to navigate, giving you a couple different strategies there. The importance of having men as allies to help support. Some of you may not even know what the women in your department are facing because we don't talk about that stuff. Why? Because we got an open door policy, we promote vulnerability, so we are waiting for people to come to us. We need to meet each other halfway. Some of us are too scared. Some of us are just hesitant. I don't know how to start that conversation as a male. I may be waiting for my female employee to come to me to start that because I don't want to make it seem kind of just weird and sensitive. But just laying the groundwork, let's have a conversation around this. My call to action is that in the future, we're not going to be talking about gender in radiology, about pay equity, gap, and inclusivity, because everybody can come be themselves. Doesn't matter if I am a single parent, I got 4 kids, I am different gender, it doesn't matter who we are, but what we can contribute to the organization. So some key reminders for you as we wrap up. Don't forget, society is still doing a lot of unlearning. We see this especially as it relates to ethnic issues, racism within our society. Continue to educate, continue to step up and talk about these things. I urge all of you to live your values every day. Don't let a job, don't let a person, don't let something take over who you are and make you feel any less. Start your own gender initiatives. Don't be afraid to reach out to others and start building that relationship so you can start sharing and really promoting gender inclusivity in your workplace. Support each other regardless of race. Yes, some of us have that privilege, but you know what? At the end of the day, we are here. We're here as servant leaders, transformational leaders. So these subconscious biases that we have, we need to pull them out and get rid of them forever. Be open, be brave, be confident in engaging in crucial conversations. I'm still learning crucial conversations. I've definitely gotten a lot better. But even when you have these conversations, reflect on it. What could you have done better? If you're talking about gender, if you're talking about how others are making the team feel, if you're seeing somebody being bullied or you're seeing something, somebody taking advantage of as a result of their gender, or you don't like what is happening, be open to having that crucial conversation and set the tone. Mark, I'd really like for us to have an open conversation on how we treat our team, especially our women around here, the opportunities for them, how we communicate with them. I'd like for this to be honest, open and honest, no conflict, no defensiveness, just to start that conversation. And if you feel like you're having a struggle with that, get employee wellness, get your HR, get somebody else who can help navigate, because sometimes, at least for me, sometimes, I get angry, I get emotional, or it just is so meaningful to me. And, that stereotype again, I don't want to be crying in front of somebody and really looking like a wuss around this. So sometimes having that support in there can help you navigate those conversations already. As you leave here, check your interaction and communication with others. Start with a simple, how are you doing? And evaluating your pitch, tone, and volume with others around you. Thank you for allowing this presentation, allowing me to come and speak on this important topic for us. I really want to see the dial move for us. I hope all of you have the courage to be a fearless leader, to slay these barriers, to make it better for yourself and others, and truly live your purpose in healthcare. Appreciate having ICE to support me in this. Let's connect and facilitate this change. There is my LinkedIn. Please feel free to reach out. Let's start talking about this some more, banding together, making the movement bigger so we can go out there and really break down these barriers. In the journals to come, it's not going to be about creating equity within our organization. It's not going to be talking about women. It is going to be celebrating us and what we have done in the last 20 years. So with that, I turn you over to Linda. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to take it.
Yes, thank you so much, Nicole. That was really thought-provoking. Thank you. I've got one question here that says, how do I begin discussions in my organisations to increase support for women without having a target on myself?
Yes, and that's what I was saying with consequences. So there are a variety of ways. If you have a relationship, for example, with employee wellness, you can start there. You can discuss your concerns and ask them how would they recommend you start that, because they can do it on your behalf, or you can engage with your HR partner. You know, this is a challenge. Start with a conversation. This is a challenge that I'm seeing within my department. I feel like we need to support the women better, because you're not necessarily talking about what you are experiencing. So it's not specific to you. You're using general comments. So you can use your HR business partner, but also you can go directly to your boss. And I would assume that if you're thinking you have a target on you, the organizational culture does not support that type of vulnerability. So you would have to decide, is this something that you need a partner within the organization, or can you stand together? You can also look at other directors around you or managers as you get to know what they're experiencing. So for example, in one organization I worked at, I was noticing that there was a significant discrepancy with the entry-level workers outside of radiology and C-suite. So I just went to HR and I said, I noticed that, you know, this is what I see. I'd like to, how can we get more representation of our population and our staffing into C-suite? And we just started the conversation there. Now, obviously, it was not a priority there, so I had to keep pushing it. So there's definitely multiple ways that we can discuss a little bit further, but your culture is going to drive that. If you're unable to start that on your own, engage with other partners and just talk about how can we make this better? Could this be an initiative? You know, it's a staff satisfaction initiative, so you can certainly group it under there as well. So there are multiple ways, but we just need to have a better understanding of what you're willing to do. If you're willing to go out on your own, what the organizational culture, is your boss willing to support this, or could you just do something within your department? Start there. And that's another big tidbit for me. When I was doing my dissertation, I remember my mentor said, Nicole, you're not trying to solve world hunger. Start one bit at a time. So you may not want to start as an organization as a whole, but start something within your department. If you see a need for it, you know, offer training for your women techs, or, you know, not just separating them, right? We want to have an inclusive. So start offering, you know, education and training on this, and start pairing people with mentors, having those conversations, those work groups. They can start directly in your department.
Just for one more question, Nicole, is how do I create mentorship programs without having the men feel left out?
And that's where we talk about those work groups, right? So, you know, you can have that conversation with them. You know, this is what you're thinking. Tell me, what does this look? I want to create more mentorships within my department. How would you feel if we were to do this? Or don't even bring your idea, get them to talk about it. Hey team, do you feel like we have an inclusive environment? Start with an anonymous survey, because then you will understand how people are feeling. So once you establish that survey, now you can come back and say, you know, based on the feedback that I've gotten, it seems that we need to really develop an initiative to create inclusivity. How do you see this happening within our department? What is your role? Because you're going to have some people that are going to step up and say, gosh, I want to be your mentor, or, you know, really giving and wanting to be part of this. When it comes to really understanding how they feel, always recommend that anonymous survey, or as you're rounding, you start asking those questions. You know, there's a lot of chatter about inclusivity, diversity in healthcare. Do you feel you experience this within our department? Why or why not? And then you can start building upon that. Once you get the understanding of what is happening, then you can create a mentorship program. So it's not necessarily that you're leaving the men out, but you're not just going to go and create something. You're going to get their ideas, their buy-ins, and then create. But the men need to be involved because they're going to be the ones really understanding, developing that understanding, breaking down their bias. But it goes for both parties, right? Because women can have some significant unconscious bias towards their male colleagues as well. So you're building these partnerships, these collaborations to develop further understanding. So we can even just take out mentorships and create these relationships, groups to help promote understanding of each other. And that's where the storytelling comes into. I did this a couple of years ago, and I had a team member come up to me and say, Nicole, I've been working with this person for 10 years, and I did not recognize anything about them. Like I've now seen them as a true person. So it really helps foster understanding as opposed to I'm just seeing you on the outside. When you really know what somebody's gone through and what has affected them, it really helps build that connection and understanding.
Great. Thank you so much, Nicole. We've come to the end of our hour. So thank you again for your time today and for a great presentation. As promised, the answer to today's trivia question is the Grand Canyon. So congratulations to our winner, Lance Lockman. A quick reminder, you can obtain your CE certificate by completing the post-webinar survey. The survey will be emailed 1 hour after the completion of today's webinar. You must complete the survey to receive your 1 ARRT Category A CE credit by the SHRM, and you'll be able to download the certificate directly from your computer once the survey is submitted. If you have any questions, you can reach us at webinar@mdpublishing.com. Visit ICE Webinars Live for more details of all our upcoming ICE webinars and complimentary registration. Thank you once again for joining us today. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.